Hello everyone, it's lovely to be here to talk to you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a flood forecast scientist working across hydrology, meteorology, climate science and disaster risk reduction. I work with a large team here at the University of Reading and with collaborators around the world, including those at the European Centre for Medium Range Weather Forecasts, ECMWF. And we're working on how we can improve the representation of water and river flow in global Earth system models. Because better predictions of where the water on our planet is right now and where it's going to be next week and even next year means that we can manage our water resources better and we're more resilient to disasters and we have better food security and ecosystem sustainability. We can improve livelihoods and we can save lives. So I want to start by taking you back in time to introduce you to a little girl, which is me, aged 9 years old. And every summer I went on holiday with my family to see my grandparents in Devon, which is on the south coast of England, and water always played a really big part. And if you think about your family holidays or your childhood, maybe interactions with water played a big role for you too. There are the days looking out the window at the rain, miserable that you can't go outside. There are the trips to the beach and swimming in the sea. There's paddling in rivers and ponds. I absolutely love doing that, and quite probably I have just never grown out of that. I remember feeling the current moving through the water and the patterns of the ripples on the surface, how the temperature changed from warm to freezing cold at different depths, and how the riverbed got deeper and changed shape as you moved from one bank to the other. I remember spending many a happy week swimming in Dartmoor rivers, collecting pebbles and digging and diverting intricate channels on sandy beaches. This fascination stayed with me through school and university, and while I didn't know it at the time, it helped lead me to a career as a floods researcher. I think this is because you have to spend time really looking at something to understand it, and I don't mean with your eyes. Much more important is to use your imagination. And to this day, often, as my family will tell you, I just stand by rivers, almost mesmerised by the water. I love watching the flow of the water and thinking about how all the many, many droplets that are passing by me right now, where did each one of them come from? Which pathway through the landscape did they take? When did each drop fall as rain? I like to imagine I can zoom in and see every single molecule, every droplet clearly, like a little blue pebble. Because each droplet is unique and each has its own history. And if we rewind time, we can follow each droplet back to its source, so we can find out its story. Maybe this one fell in some of the really heavy rain yesterday in a street and rushed over the land straight into the river. Perhaps this one fell last year and has been sitting in the soil and has only just been pushed out by the force of other droplets from a more recent storm. Perhaps this one fell decades ago, maybe on the very same day that I was born, and percolated down, into the groundwater deep below the surface, slowly making its way through the rocks and finally to the river. Of course, these are only a few drops. There are billions and billions and billions of them all around the world, in the seas, so the ocean currents, in the clouds, the rivers, the lakes, all constantly moving and being buffeted around by the air, the soil, and of course by people. I find this imagining of a swirling, ever-changing world of water absolutely beautiful. This is something else I find beautiful. This is the Sentinel-1 image of the River Amazon as it leaves Peru. And this is the image I have permanently on the background of my computer screen and that I stare at all day, sometimes when I'm pretending to look at my colleagues in an online meeting. But of course, please don't tell them that. Look at the way that the river loops and meanders and threads. Pushed into extraordinary shapes by the conflicting forces of physics and chemistry and biology, I find this image a bit like a puzzle, because the closer you look, the more tributaries you can see, these tiny meandering baby rivers. Rivers are beautiful, both in their simplicity and their complexity. The swirling, the threading, the beautiful chaos of the river flow. And it's this complexity that intrigues me and that inspires me every day. Think of all those tiny blue pebbles that must interact in this hugely complicated river system. It's essential to be able to work out how rivers flow and to predict when a flood is coming, because rivers are beautiful, but they are beautiful monsters. They have split personalities, drawing people in to live beside them when they're peaceful and provide food and transport, but they quickly change character and they destroy everything around them. According to the UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, floods accounted for 44% of all disaster events from 2000 to 2019, affecting 1.6 billion people worldwide. And they are deadly. The June 2013 floods in India led to more than 6,000 deaths. In many places, floods have been getting worse because of where we choose to live, or more often, where we've no other choice but to live. This puts people in the way of the floodwaters. We also put people more at risk because of the way we've changed the landscape. We've built whole cities on floodplains or on the coast. We've cut down trees that help to hold the soil in place. So what we really want is the power to be able to benefit from rivers when they're good, but to know in advance before they go bad, with enough advance warning to take action to protect people and communities. And that's the aim of what I spend most of my time doing, flood prediction, but it's a really hard job. As humans, we have huge societal challenges ahead of us, frightening prospects of both increased water insecurity and increased risks from floods around the world. Predicting the biggest of floods and the worst of droughts means we have to understand the behaviour of the tiniest of molecules. We must imagine the Earth as a giant system and use this to trace these billions and billions of pathways of water. We feed in the millions of pieces of data from instruments on the ground, on planes, balloons, and of course satellites, so that we can create a picture of where all the water is and what it is doing right now, and where it will be in a day and in a week or in a month from now. And when we combine these records with the power of a supercomputer and the idea of the Earth system, it's possible to make global forecasting models, providing flood forecasts for all the major rivers on Earth. And 10 years ago, this was not possible. But now we have the GEOGloWS system, we have the GEOGloWS ECMWF streamflow services, we have global real-time flood information that can be used locally to take real on-the-ground decisions to help reduce the risk to people and livelihoods. So from this global picture, let's zoom in a little. This is Mozambique, a beautiful country, but one with a huge percentage of its population living in extreme poverty. The coast of Mozambique is regularly battered by tropical cyclones. Here in the Northern Hemisphere, around the Atlantic, tropical cyclones are of course better known as hurricanes, which is what they're called when they hit America. But in Africa, they're called cyclones, the most powerful storms in the world, hundreds of kilometres across and causing strong winds, storm surge from the sea and heavy, heavy rains that lead to flooding. The warm waters of the Indian Ocean fuel these storms as water droplets continuously evaporate and build up the swirling clouds and the structure of the storm. In March 2019, a huge tropical cyclone called Idai hit Mozambique, and then just a few weeks later, another huge tropical cyclone called Kenneth slammed into the country. Hundreds of thousands of people were in immediate danger, And I worked as part of a team using the GEOGloWS global flood forecasts to help provide information to the UK government and to humanitarian partners such as the Mozambique Red Cross. We analysed the tropical cyclone track forecasts, looking at where and when the cyclone might make landfall, but also where it might be dumping all the rainfall that it was bringing with it. Really importantly, we could say where and when the flooding was likely to occur and where people were most at risk. And providing this early warning means that actions can be taken to prepare for the devastating impacts of huge floods before they happen, rather than just dealing with them after they have happened. People can be evacuated, rescuers and equipment can be moved to the right place and put on standby, and lives can be saved. But of course, this is just the beginning, because we're just learning about how global services can best support lesser developed countries. And with the combined power of Earth system models, Earth observation products, local expertise and an understanding of how water and society interact, we could do so much more. And also these types of global services are only going to become more important as climate change makes extremes of weather more extreme than we're used to. It's a complicated picture. It's not one that we understand fully. And in the past, I think we've hesitated to say that climate change causes a particular flood to happen, because rivers and land have flooded since before humans existed. But we can say now, with increasing certainty, that you can see these human fingerprints in the form of climate change and its impacts on our planet, on many of the floods around the world. And what's very clear is that we need to be much better prepared for more intense and more frequent flood events in the future, as well as more severe heat waves and fires and droughts. So very often droughts are characterised by a lack of rain, leading to a lack of flow in the river, which leads to crop failure and water shortage. But humans play such a crucial role in droughts and water insecurity, and we know that different social groups diversely interact and co-evolve with our human water systems. I work with a brilliant researcher, Elisa Savelli at Uppsala, who has been exploring the major water crisis known as Day Zero that shocked the city of Cape Town in South Africa in 2018 following a prolonged drought. She found 2 families that truly embody the different conditions of water access among Cape Town residents during the drought, and who had wholly different experiences of the water crisis. In Langa, which is a coloured township, she spoke to Kayla, and she tells the story about how in February 2018, in the early evening, she was about to rinse off her hair, but not a single drop of water comes out the shower head, because she had finished the limited amount of water that her large family was allowed to consume on that day. Whilst at exactly the same time, in Bishop's Court, which is about 14 kilometres southwest from Langa, the Duplessis family is watering the garden with water from the borehole they had recently drilled. Now, we can't blame the lack of rain for these differences. Cape Town's political legacy has encouraged unsustainable levels of water consumption amongst the white elite, and tolerated chronic water insecurity amongst black informal dwellers. So this is another opportunity for GEOGloWS. If we can better identify those mechanisms within society that determine what water is secured and what human-water interactions and dynamics will be sustained over time, we can better inform policies that reduce inequalities in water access and unsustainable water use. To me, the world's rivers and groundwaters and oceans and clouds will always be beautiful monsters made up of billions of precious blue pebbles, but with a bite that can hurt in water crises, devastating floods and environmental damage. But little about this bite is natural. It's because of how we as humans interact with the water cycle. GEOGloWS has a really unique and crucial position here. The strength of collaboration, a focus on openness and sharing, and the ability to integrate big data, global Earth system infrastructures with global policy, local expertise, and most importantly, local requirements. Now, I have only one sneaky request before I stop. I make this plea to politicians, mathematicians, poets and school children alike. Next time you happen to be next to a river, take a moment to stop and look. And go beyond the mass of swirling water before you. I want you to zoom in and look for those blue pebbles and ask yourself, where did they all come from? When did they all come from? And where are they all going to? Thank you for listening.